Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sumo Logic Search Mastery Certification. We can go ahead and get started now. To introduce myself, my name is Owner, and I'm part of the professional services team here at Sumo Logic. And I will be your instructor today. So we'll be going over some of the query labs together. And on the line, we have Lisa and Trem, who will be helping us out for, with any questions that you guys have. So I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
Hey everyone, my name is Lisa Carnes. I'm so excited to be here to support Owner for your guys' class. I'm a customer success manager here at Sumo Logic, been here for about 3.5 years now, and I'm located in Oakland, California. So feel free to post your questions and we'll help out as we can throughout the course.
Hi everyone, my name is Tram and I run the training program here at Sumo Logic. And we're really excited for you to be here and ready for your questions. So feel free to post in the chat if you do have questions throughout the sessions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Tram. Alrighty, let's get started. So as Lisa and Tram mentioned, if you guys have any questions throughout the whole presentation and certification, please feel free to post it on chat. We will be monitoring it, answering it, and show you guys some examples if you guys have really in-depth questions. So to get started, let me just go ahead and move this. There you go. So talk about the agenda. We just introduced ourselves and talking about the objectives. I'll go ahead and do a little bit of talk about the metadata and also query syntax right before we start our labs. Today, we will be focusing on our search mastery labs. So we'll be going over searches, parsing, field extraction rules, some of our filtering, plotting, on a map, formatting results, and of course, using our outliers, figuring out trends and creating alerts. At the end, you guys will have 60 minutes to be able to take this certification test, and which will be online, and we will help you guys out through that as well. So to get started, let's talk about metadata, right? So we will talk about source categories and collectors throughout the entire certification. What metadata tags are basically, if you use the collector, right, that will be the name of the collector that we're collecting logs from. The source host will be the host name of the server, right? So it all depends what we have set up throughout the collection. Oh, let's keep moving. There you go. The source name, if you're getting our logs from a log file, it will just be the name and the path of that log file, and the source, right, depending on where you're bringing the logs from, right? So the source category, which we will be using it today, well, most of our searches will be using source category. This is the custom metadata tag field that you could actually customize, right? It all depends. I will show you guys, examples of what those could be and how to actually get to use them. So our query syntax, right? We talked about metadata, right? This is a quick examples of source category that we're using and taking a look at our labs Apache access logs, right? We will focus on Apache logs a lot today. And we could always add keywords, right? In this example, we're looking at Mozilla. If we created some field extraction rules, which I will get into, we could actually use them as keywords as well. Right after that, we could use parsing statements, right, to be able to parse fields that what we need from our logs. In this example, we're looking at URLs and status codes. We're doing some type of filtering, right? We only want to see the logs or status codes that matches, 5, so 500s. We could aggregate, right? We're just counting by status code. And at the end, we could always format our query, right? Depending on how we want to see and what we want to see as a result. Alrighty, so we do have a training account for you guys, so we could all be looking at the same logs, right? While we are going over these labs, we could actually use the same account. So I'm gonna post this in our chat. Let me just get out of here. So you will need to use this URL, and the email to actually log into the account will be training plus analysis. And we will have to change this 3 numbers right here, right? It could be from 001 to 999. Please, it looks like you guys actually have done this before. So you guys can actually put the number on the chat so we can know and not everyone gets the same one. Let me just post this. You guys are fast. This is great. And also, I'm going to actually post the URL for the labs as well. Please let us know if anyone have any issues logging in, because this is the account that we'll be using today. I'll give everyone a minute. Once you guys log in, you guys might actually see more tabs open than me, right? I basically cleaned mine. You guys can always right click on the tabs and just close all tabs so we could start fresh. So the password, Tram just put it on the chat as well, but it is S capital SEPT 2021 exclamation point. Perfect. And were you guys able to access our labs as well? So I will go ahead and post that into chat again, just in case. I know it's cleared up. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. One of the first things that I actually want to, showing locked account. Let me actually take a look at that. Yeah, do you mind trying a different number? Alrighty, let me see. So Brandon, Lisa, and Tram is going to, yeah, it is most likely that you're using the same number as a different participant. If you could try a different number and let us know through the chat, and they will be able to help you out. Alrighty, not a problem. Okay, so let's get started. So one of the first things that I want to talk about are old UI versus new UI. If you guys are familiar with Sumo Logic, or if you guys have logged in before, right? What we had in our search tab was, most of our operations, save as, or if info, or the share pins, used to be right under your search query. Well, now our current UI, as you guys will see in a bit, is actually we have changed that. So if you come into our homepage and click on new and log search, you could also actually use this button right here. So once we click that, as you can see, we do not see our buttons right here. So save as is actually going to be under this 3 dots on the right side, right? We could save, we could take a look at the info. If we have actually written the query, we'll be able to go ahead and share with the teammates that we have. And also, we'll be able to use our receipt time or auto parse mode. Everyone should be able to, everyone's account should have this open already. If not, please go ahead and click on it so we could actually use auto parse mode for today's session. To get started with the labs, right? Let's go ahead and get started with the lab 1. So these are the basics, and we want to actually learn a little bit more about the metadata and the keywords and what we can do with it, right? Our first, sorry about that. So our first source category, what we're going to be looking for is our labs Apache access. What I will be doing, instead of typing this, we could always copy these, and we're going to take a look at it for the last 15 minutes. So let me actually get this bigger. Perfect. So once I paste it here, automatically my first, my time range is actually automatically 15 minutes. So I could just go ahead and click on the search button or click on enter. And in here, I will actually see a histogram for 15 minutes, right? This is actually showing me how many logs that are coming in within the last 15 minutes when I do a search for Labs Apache access logs, right? At any time throughout the certification or our labs, we're actually going to change our time range. You could always click on it, choose some of the ones that we have already, the relative ones that we always get to use, or we could always do a custom one. Or let's say if you want to do a specific minus 20 minutes, right? We could just go ahead and do that as well. Perfect. So going in here, our 1.2, our lab 1.2 is actually, we want to see the logs that are only showing us 404. So I could just go ahead and copy this, right? Copy this keyword, come back in here and just go ahead and paste it in. So what we're looking for and what we will see is that all of our keywords that has, or all of our logs that has 404 will be highlighted yellow, right? So it's not showing me any other status code. It's only showing me 404, and it's actually making it easy for me to see where those keywords are. Let's say that we want to actually look at the logs that has error, check, or checkout in them, right? So I could actually copy these and we could take advantage of wildcards, right? So if I just go ahead and run it in here, what I'm saying is that let's go ahead and take a look at my logs that are coming from Labs Apache Access. And I want to see my error logs or anything that matches check, right? It could be checkout, check-in. It all depends on the logs that we are actually ingesting. So there's a question from Beth that do we really need the end? No. So the end we actually do not need. We could actually run this and Sumo Logic will automatically know that this is an end. The or on the other hand, we actually do need to specify the ors, right? I could actually run this and be able to see the same results as what I had and in here, right? I like to have it, and our labs actually do have that just for us to test them. One of the things that that I want you guys to see, we did use this wildcard in here in the check. As you can see, this is actually going to point out our checkout, right? And it will actually see all of our logs that match that check keyword. Alrighty. So the next one, we're actually going to look at it for last 45 minutes, and we want to take a look at our Labs Apache error logs, right? Let me just go ahead and copy that. We could create a new log search, and let's change this. I could come in here. I could take a look if I have in one of my relative time ranges. I do not see minus, last 45 minutes. I could easily just go ahead and do minus 45. M means minutes. And I could just go ahead and run my query. As you can see, my histogram actually changed, right? Before it was only showing me my last 15 minutes. Currently, it will actually show me last 45 minutes, and it will show me the amount of logs that we're actually bringing in. And it is only bringing my logs. If you look at the left side, actually, my source category, I will see that I'm only bringing logs from Labs Apache error. Alrighty, what about if I want to take a look at my access and error logs at the same time? Well, we have two ways to do this, right? As you can see in 1.6, we could use wildcards, or we could actually go ahead and type in our metadata tags with an or, right? Let me just copy the or. And once I paste it, I'm actually currently looking at both of my error and access logs. And just to confirm it, we could always go into the hidden fields part under source category. This first metadata tags will always be parsed out for you. You could always take a look at which collector it is coming from, which source it is actually bringing the logs from, and the source category. As we wanted to see access and error logs, this will actually show me the approximate count as well, right? How much logs are actually coming from access and error logs, which makes things a little easy. And the other way that we could actually use it is wildcards. So I could actually put a wildcard right after Labs Apache Access and go ahead and run it. And this will actually show me anything that is coming or matching this first two keywords, right? First two words that we have within our source category. Just to make sure it is still the access and error logs. You're not only limited to actually use the wildcards at the end, right? If I want to go ahead and see, this is my labs environment. Let's say that I have my prod and dev environment that are actually ingesting the logs from. So I could always go ahead and do that. So in this case, what I want to do, I know this is not in the labs, but what I want to do is I want to see any of my source categories that has Apache in it. So if I run it, well, in our training environment, we only have our labs source category that is bringing in. But if we add prod or dev, you will be able to see that in here as well. Perfect. So the LiveTail, right? If I want to go ahead and see my labs Apache access logs, and I want to see all of the 404s that are coming in the live, at the time that I'm ingesting, I could actually click on new and click on LiveTail and be able to run this metadata tag, run the search with a keyword. So once I click on run, it looks like there's a lot of people are on LiveTail. So that's one of the reasons I'm not able to see the LiveTails. But at least one of the, the first ones that actually run that LiveTail search will be able to see the logs coming in real time. And we'll be able to see, how many 404 errors that are coming in.
So is that an account limit, or is that like a partition limit?
Account.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So in my organization, we could have up to 10 running, correct?
Yes, it's actually the first time I'm seeing this, especially on our training account, but it's it's giving me trouble. Yeah. Let me check the chat already. Let's go into lab 2. So this is the time that we are actually going to get into parsing, grouping, and filtering. A little bit more fun stuff, right? So let's say that, we did this earlier. We want to go ahead and see our access and error logs. And, for the last 15 minutes, and I want to go ahead and count by source, right? Let's go ahead and copy this. So the source, even though we are not parsing it out, as I mentioned earlier, if I go into my messages tab, this first metadata tags will always be parsed out for me. So at any time, if I want to go ahead and count my sources or count my source categories, I could always use those metadata tag filters, right? Currently, my Apache Access source is bringing the most of the logs. Once I do a count, it will actually go ahead and open my aggregates tab. You don't lose the logs, right? You could always come back into messages and see which logs that are coming in. Let's say that I want to count by my source category. I could just easily go ahead and change this to source category. And this will give me a count of all of the source categories that I'm ingesting in the last 15 minutes. So let's say that we want to use regex, right? I want to be able to parse out my IP, right? There are multiple ways to do it. I will show you guys the different options, but in this example, we're going to use regex. Let me just go ahead and comment out my count so we could actually see it. So what I'm telling Sumo to do is go ahead and look for my IP addresses, right? 1 to 3 digits and a dot, 1 to 3 digits and a dot, and basically figuring out what my IPs are and giving that field name an IP address, right? I could always change this. It is totally up to you guys. But from my logs, it will go ahead and find my IP address and put it in a new field. In this case, I could actually make sense of the data and I could count by my IP address. So once I do a count, this will go ahead and give me all the counts, all of my IP addresses within the last 15 minutes. I could click on count, right? So if I want to see the most IP addresses that are within my logs in the 15 minutes, I could just go ahead and click on count and be able to see the numbers. Alrighty, so let's say that I want to be able to see, any of my IP addresses that are coming in the last 15 minutes, but there are more than 500, right? So this number needs to be more than 500 for me to actually be able to make sense of it, right? I could use my where operator. So what I'm saying in here is that where my count is bigger than 500. Once I run this, it will go ahead and show me my top 3, right? All of these counts are actually more than 500. At any time, I could actually change this. So if I need a pie chart, I could go ahead and click on this button right here. If I put my mouse over it, it will give me a little bit more information about it, right? Just my IP address, what is the count, and the percentage. And at any time, I could actually go ahead and whatever makes sense for us, right? I could use a bar, depending on the query that we're doing or the visualizations that we want to see. All right, so in the last one on the lab 2 is we want to actually see our top source IP addresses by bandwidth usage, right? So in this case, well, I need to know, number 1, what is my IP, right? I need to parse my IP addresses. And also I need to parse out my size, right? My basically byte size. And once I figure out these 2, right, I could just go ahead and sum my byte sizes, per IP address to be able to figure out which ones are actually the top 10. So let's go ahead and copy this entire search. Create a new log search, right? We could leave it as last 15 minutes. This spaces, we really do not have to worry about them, but just, I like to clean them up. And let's go ahead and, I'm gonna go ahead and comment this entire line right here. And the way that I did that is actually I clicked on options key and be able to move my mouse down and go ahead and comment out the entire query. So in our other example, we parsed out our IP addresses, right? Once I run this, it will go ahead and give me my IP addresses. I want to figure out my size, right? As you can see within my Apache logs, Apache access logs, my byte size is right after my status code, right? I could use Regex, I could use Parse Anchor, depending on how I want to parse it out, I could always parse this. But in this example, I actually care about my 200 status codes. So I don't want to see 403s, 404s, or 500s, right? I want to focus on my 200 status codes. And I want to be able to know what the size is for those status codes, right? So what I'm saying, what I'm telling Sumo to do is look for a space, look for 200, another space, and go ahead and give me whatever that number is right after that space, right? So let's go ahead and run this. There you go. So this is my status code right here. I'm parsing out this size field, so I could go ahead and sum them and make sense of it. Alrighty, our next line is I'm actually telling Sumo to go ahead and sum my size, give it a field name total bytes per IP address, right? So once I run this, I will go ahead and see my IP addresses in my aggregate state tab, and also my total bytes for that IP address, right? One of the things that our lab was telling us that they want to be able to see our top 10 IP addresses, right? So I could always use my top operator. So in here, I'm basically saying, let me know what are my top IP addresses by total bytes, right? Depending on, so I could always click on this and be able to see this top 10 right here. It looks like I have 25 results. Once I run this, this will go ahead and give me the results that I'm looking for. All right, let me check the chat. All right. So lab 3, the different parsing options, right? So let's look at our, earlier I talked about, leaving our query in auto parse mode. So what we can do is, let's go ahead and take a look at our JSON logs, right? I know that I'm bringing in my JSON logs from my CloudTrail. So let me go ahead and copy this. Go ahead and open a new search. And only take a look at, clutcher of logs that are coming in. Perfect. So what I'm looking here is JSON type logs that are coming in, right? As you can see, it's a little bit more different than our Apache access logs. We have a field and a value, and all of these, just because we have this auto parse mode is actually enabled within our account, this will be parsed out for me. So I do not have to worry about parsing any of these fields out, right? I could see my AWS region in here, and within my hidden fields, I could actually go ahead and find my AWS regions as well. I could always click on this AWS region, see, what are the values that I have for that field, approximate count, as we've seen before. But if I want to use it in a query, there's no parsing needed. I could just come in here and count by AWS region. Perfect. At any time, so one of the things that I like to show is at any time, if you want to rename the field that you're bringing in from JSON logs, right? That's the time that we could actually go ahead and create a field extraction rule for it or parse it out manually, right? So let's say that the source IP address, or let's go ahead and use source IP address. Let's say that I want to change the name for it IP address, right? I want to get rid of this source. I could always right click on it and click on parse selected key. This will actually automatically give me a parsing statement, and I could rename it as IP address. Perfect. So once I run this, right, my source IP address will be here with a new field name, right? At any time, if I want to go back and, I really don't care about what the field name is, I could just go ahead and keep it as is, or, comment this out and be able to use this as well. Alrighty. So the no drop option, right? I'm actually going to get this, the last query that we have created, and go over it line by line. And let's comment out no drop as well, so we could see what we're looking at. So what I'm doing in here, in my labs Apache error logs, is I'm looking for a keyword called client, well, bracket, client, space, and then I'm trying to get that IP address, right? So all of my IP addresses will be shown as I want them to be, right? And at any point, so what Sumo Logic does is, if it does not see that client IP within the logs, it actually drops the logs. So it does not show it to you. The way that I will want to see those logs is actually using my no drop operator, right? Or option that we have. So once I click on no drop, so what it will do, all these logs were dropped earlier just because it did not see my client IP within the logs, but it will be available for me, right? In this case, I could just come in here and do some more parsing. Let's say that I'm parsing out my message, right? Looking for that mod log SQL columns. And this will be able to, give me my message field and also give me my client IP, right? And let's say that at any point, if I want to focus on, where the logs are actually not having client IP, I could always use my isBlank operator, right? So what I'm saying in here is that go ahead and show me the logs where client IP is blank. Perfect. Let me go ahead and see. So Jared has a question. When they save the fields, when they save the, a query, especially with the JSON fields, are they going to be saved, right? So, well, it depends, right? If I save this query, yes, it will go ahead and show me my source IP address as IP address. And this will actually go ahead and help you later on when you come back to your search, use the same field. We will talk about field extraction rules soon. So if you're only saving the query for, renaming the fields, I wouldn't recommend it doing it that way. I would actually recommend creating field extraction rules. Perfect. All right, so parse field option. So most of the time, what we have done so far is parsing out our raw message, right? Anything that is coming into Sumo Logic, or let's say we go back into our Apache access logs, we are actually parsing out this message that we are ingesting into Sumo Logic. Well, what about if I want to go ahead and parse out my message tab, right? Or my client IP, right? So let's say that I want to get the first digits of my client IP and be able to, instead of going in and writing a regex for it and be able to parse it in within one of my fields, right? So that's the time that we will actually use parse field. Let me copy this out. All right, so what we're doing here is we're looking at our GitHub source category, right? And we are looking for the keywords that has, committer. And I'm parsing out my email, right? So let's go ahead and run this, make sure everything is working correctly. Looks like some of them are not, right? So it looks like some of these are actually not having our emails. Let me see if I could fix this out. Looks like some of those emails are not what I'm expected. So let's go ahead and focus on the ones that are working, right? So let's say that this is one of the emails. And the goal for me today is be able to figure out my usernames. So anything before this @ sign, right? And also take a look at what are the domains that are coming in, right? So that's time that I could use my parse field operator. So I could come in here, go ahead and say, parse field, specify which field that you want to go ahead and parse out, and use regex, or in this case we're using parse anchor. Be able to say that anything before the @ sign, go ahead and name it users. Anything after the @ sign, go ahead and name it domain. So once I do that, it would actually drop the logs that I didn't like and it wasn't parsing out correctly. It will only show me anything that matches this parsing statement, right? Because I'm not using no drop, right? So I will have my domain in here and I will have my users. I want to be able to count by users. So I could always come in here, use a count. Just click on that. I want to see the most user, the user that has been logging in the most time. And at any point, if I want to go ahead and see my top 5, as always, I could use my top 5 operator. Alrighty, so we talked about no drop, which means that I want to make sure none of the logs are being dropped if it doesn't match my parsing statement. But what about if I have multiple IP addresses within my logs, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at our labs source category. And let's go ahead and run this without this. So as always, we are actually looking at our, our source category, parsing out our IP address. And what it does is it basically picks up the first IP address that it sees within the logs, and it doesn't really look at the last one, right? So as you can see within my logs, I have 2 different IP addresses in here. And, for my use case, I actually need both of them, right? If I go into the next log right here, again, it is picking up the first one, but not really picking up my second IP address. That's the time that I could use multi, right? Once I run my multi operator, or once I run it at the end, what this will do, it would actually pick up this first IP address. And after that, in the next line, it would actually, as you can see, these are both of them are the same logs that are coming in, but it will show me my second IP address. This way is a little bit more accurate, right? And I want to focus on both of the IP addresses within my logs, so I could see both of them in 2 different lines. Alrighty, so we talked about field extraction rules, but what are they, right? So field extraction rule, it's basically parsing is done upon ingestion. So once the logs get into Sumo Logic, whatever we have created and whatever we have specified in field extraction rules, those fields will be parsed out automatically for us, right? We're not going to create one just because we have our training kind of already, set up the way that we wanted to show you guys. But if you go into Manage Data and click on Logs, and in here, you will see the tab Field Extraction Rules. A lot of these are repeated just because we've been creating them and testing them. But what these are doing is basically saying that, hey, anytime I ingest my labs Apache error logs, right, go ahead and parse out my source IP, right, and give it the name source IP. This way, I don't have to worry about parsing. I don't have to do any type of parsing at the search time because everything is done at the ingest time. So let's go ahead and take a look at how these work. Let me copy this. And I'm going to actually comment these out so we could take a look at them. So I'm looking at my labs Apache access logs. On the left side, if you guys take a look at the hidden fields, I already have my fields parsed out, right? If I care about my source IP, I could click on it and be able to see this, parse out values. If I want to actually see my status codes, I could take a look at these as well. All of the ones that we have created our field extraction rules for. So before we were able to use keywords and take a look at, error or 400 and be able to use keywords to do our search. Once we have created our field extraction rules, we could actually use those in our keyword section. So what I'm saying in here, right, instead of saying where status code is equal to 404, I could put an and status code equal to 404. Right, once I run this, I should only be able to see my 404 status code logs that are coming in. And at any point, even if I actually have this closed out, I'm only looking at my status code, I could come in here with no parsing and be able to do count by source IP. And this will give me the values that I'm looking for. One of the best practices we have for queries is, if we have our field extraction rules created, instead of saying where status code is equal to 404, is to actually use it on the meta in the scope, right? Before even I start my query, be able to specify what type of logs that you're looking for, or, adding keywords, or, stating that status code, I only care about 404 status codes on top. It actually helps with the performance. And your queries will run much faster. Let me take a look. Alrighty, lab 4. We're gonna look into conditional operations, right? So what we are trying to do right now is Apache access logs. We're going to take a look at them for the last 60 minutes. And I want to see my successful HTTP requests and also my errors, right? And be able to figure out what is the difference between those two, right? So if I copy this entire query out, and let me clean, I could just go ahead and right click on this, close all tabs, or close other tabs if I need to, if I want to keep this one open, but I want to clean this up and start fresh. Alrighty, let's comment these out, do a quick run. So I'm parsing out my status code, right? I don't need to, right? Because I have these already parsed out. But what I want to say is if my status code is matching 200, I want to go ahead and give successes field a value of 1. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. There you go. So all of these status codes are 200 and my successes field is actually giving 1, right? But on the other hand, I want to take a look at my 404 status code and label them as client errors. So as you can see, anytime it's 200, my client errors are 0, my successes is 1. And at the end of it, what I want to do, I want to actually go ahead and add all of these and be able to see the difference, right? So I could come in here use my sum operator. So I'm going to go ahead and sum my successes and give it a field name success count. And I will be doing the same thing for my client errors as well. So Joe, so anytime we do this, so I believe you're talking about this histogram, right? So correct. So it is showing you within the last 15 minutes, how many logs that are coming in, right? If I change my time range and do, let's say, last 1 hour, this will actually change and it will go ahead and show you how many logs that are coming in the last 1 hour. It's really helpful if you're looking for spikes. Oh, okay. Sorry. There you go. It's this one right here, I believe. So the load status right here, this is basically showing us how fast is our query is running, right? If I am running a 30-day, let's say every report, and it is taking longer than it should, right? You will actually see orange or red in here. Some of the best practice. So if you click on this help doc right here, it will actually go ahead and show you some of our best practices for writing queries. As I mentioned, using field extraction rules in the scope, right? Creating field extraction rules. So instead of doing parsing at the search time, be able to do it at the ingest time will save you a lot of time. Or it will go ahead and let you know if you're not using any source categories, if you're looking at your entire logs that are coming in, you will definitely see this load in reds. Hopefully that answered your question. Please let me know if you want me to specify it a little bit more. Alrighty. Richard, yes, you could. So for our perfect. Thank you, Joe. So you could actually use regex. So you could say anything that matches 200s, right? So 2 and use a wildcard, or you could do 4 and a wildcard. Instead of equal, we could actually use matches for that. So basically, if I go into my help doc, so help.sumologic.com, this will definitely be useful for the certification as well, being able to get into help docs and do quick searches, right? If I do matches, this will actually give you an example of, so let me find a good one. So in here, we are actually using a regex, right? So we're saying anything that matches iPad, right? And using a wildcard, we will go ahead and, that field name will be OS and it will be iPad or OS. So you're not only limited to static numbers. Alrighty, so once I actually run my search, my successes and client errors, I will see the sum and be able to compare those two. Right, let me move my zoom out of the way. Already, subqueries. This is where it gets fun. So let's say that I want to be able to, okay, sorry, I was just taking a look at the chat. So let's say that I want to be able to search my Apache access or error logs, right? And be able to figure out certain IP addresses, right? And run that query in a parent query to be able to use it as a keyword, right? So it will make sense once we actually run it, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at this. And taking a look at this diagram at first, so we are creating a child query. The results of that child query, it will actually go into our parent query and being used as keyword, right? So let's say that I want to create my child query right here. It's already created for me. Let me copy this and see the results. So in this case, we're looking at our time, our errors, and our IP address, right? We're using a keyword that, file does not exist. So I want to see all of my IP addresses that has this keyword right here. So once we run by count by IP, I will see my IP addresses that are having this error, right? But I want to, instead of doing 2 different searches, right? Being able to copy this and run it in a different source category or run it in a different search, I want to be able to have this as a report to be able to pick up this IP address and use it in a different source category, right? So as we can see in here, go ahead and copy these out. So the same query that we had, right? The only thing that is different is I'm actually using my compose operator and creating that IP as a keyword. So what this will do, it will pick up my subquery, will give me my IP addresses. It will take the results and put it on top right next to my source category, my source, my scope, to be able to give me those results. So let's go ahead and run this. So as you can see, it is actually showing me my IP address that we saw earlier, right? To show you an example, and it might actually make sense a little bit more, I could just go ahead and copy my source and my subquery, and let's go ahead and run it right next to it, right? And let's keep it as compose IP keywords. If you had multiple IP addresses, in this case, what it will do, it actually line them side by side. So it is actually taking this entire IP addresses with double quotes and brackets, and it is putting it in our parent query for us to be able to see the logs that are coming in. There are different use cases for it, right? So let's say that you're trying to see your logins, right? Successful logins, and you want to be able to go ahead and see, take those usernames and see what's going on within your application, right? Instead of creating two different searches and be able to copy and do multiple steps, you could automate it and have one subquery and be able to see the results.
Can that subquery return back more than one IP?
Yes.
Or could you do like the top 10 and then get?
Yep. So we could definitely do that. So let's say we change this to, I'm not sure if I have logs to be able to see that. I might need to run this a little bit. I just don't have the logs, so I could just do, it looks like, our labs Apache error logs that has this error is only coming with this IP address. But in theory, if you have the logs and it's multiple different, IP addresses, you will be able to do it. So your compose,
get me back all of the requests that resulted in a 500 error, and then give me all the log line, get the request IDs for all of those requests, and then give me all the log lines that are associated with that those request IDs.
Correct. You definitely can. Let me actually get this out of here so I could show you. Yep, there you go. So what it does is, since we're going to be using this as a keyword, right, in our parent query, it actually puts ORs between them, right? This is parsed out wrong. So it will actually go ahead and give our IP addresses and run it as a keyword. So if I run this right now, so let's go ahead and change this. So let's say I do not need that. I want to be able to do 5. I should be able to see more results, and also I might not have any of these in my access source category. So that's probably why I'm not getting any results as well. Any other questions on the subquery? I don't see anything on the chat. Already 50. All right, let's go into plotting clients on a map, right? So I'm sure you guys have seen dashboards, or if you joined our earlier certification class, we have a lot of apps and dashboards that has this type of queries. But just to quickly go over it, right? Let me just go ahead and click on this. What I'm doing, right, as always, client IP, I'm using my geolocation lookup to be able to see where these logins are coming from, right? Once I run the search, I will see this table view. At any time, I could click this map button, right? This will actually put the results in a map. So in here, it looks like, it will show me the entire world and where my client IPs are coming from. right? If you want to focus on a specific country, you could definitely do that, right? So instead of saying latitude and longitude, we could actually do, I believe it was country name. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. Oops. And let's do. And once I plot it, automatically I would only focus on United States. We could do country code, right? So our lookup table in our help docs, it definitely shows all of the fields that comes up automatically once we use our geolocation lookup, right? But just easily, if I want to take a look at my country name, you know, my country, United States, or let's say France or Italy, I could just go ahead and specify that and focus on that. At any time, if I want to go ahead and see all of them, I could just go ahead and use that. It is definitely useful because if you have, let's say you have a use case that you have restricted countries that, you know, you don't want to see any logins, you could create an alert specifying that, hey, if I get any type of logins or, you know, activity from this specific countries, go ahead and alert me. So that's the time that you could actually dig in and see what are they doing, where is it coming from, and at least you will be alerted. Jesse, are you clicking on this? And what is your time range as well?
Yeah, as in the earlier, the fundamentals, and it showed up at the beginning, but then it said error. And then in this one, it just, I get a blank screen when I switch to map, but I can go to bar just fine.
Oh, that's weird. I'm trying to think, what could that be? Nothing comes up. Is there any way you could refresh the page and be able to rerun the search? Just to make sure. And Lisa and Tram, do you guys mind taking a look if that could be something?
Yes.
Yeah, refresh it, same thing.
Same thing. So it's just blank page instead of seeing the map?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to take a note of that and see what it could be. I haven't seen that so far, and I will definitely keep you updated right
Okay,
after
thanks.
I go through these. Definitely. Thank you for bringing that up.
Sure.
Alrighty. So moving on to the next lab, I definitely want to get through all of these labs so you guys will be ready for your certification. So calculating changes and moving averages, right? So let's say that I want to figure out my difference, right? What is going on within the account in 1 minute and what's going on in the next minute, right? Let's go ahead and run our search for the last 15 minutes. Let's go ahead and clear this up, create a new one. So what I'm doing, I'm breaking down my 15 minutes into time slices of 1 minute. So I want to be able to see, so let's go ahead and comment these out. I want to be able to see every minute and count my time slices per minute, right? So let's click on this. So as you can see at 9:39 a.m., there is 28 counts, right? 9:40, it will just go ahead and keep adding a minute for last 15 minutes. As you can see, I actually sorted my results by clicking on my time field, but you could always actually use your sort operator and be able to sort your time slice, so this field right here, and be able to see the results the way that you want to see it. With the diff operator, what I want to see is what is the difference between every minute. So the first minute we run this, of course, we don't have any data, and it is not going to show any type of difference, right? But once I moved into my 9:41 a.m., right, I will see the difference between these two lines, and it just keeps going that way, right? So if I'm looking at my third line, and by the way, your results might be different than mine, just because depending on the minute that we run it, so it's not wrong. You might just have different numbers. So let's say that I want to calculate my moving average for my 404 status codes, right? I could use my smooth operator and be able to do that. So let's go ahead and give that a run. Just like the earlier example, I'm using my best practices, right? I'm putting my field extraction rule, my status code field, and specifying what status code that I want to take a look at. Time slicing them per 1 minute. I'm counting my time slices as error count because I'm only focusing on my 404 status codes, and using my smooth operator to be able to see my rolling average. So let's say that I run this. I will go ahead and see my error count and be able to see my rolling average towards the end. So let's say that I want to graph this, right? In our lab, we have a nice, beautiful chart, right? That shows my error count and my rolling average. So I could have a, better visualization of what's going on within my account, right? I could definitely do that by clicking on the bars. In here, you're actually seeing two different colors, right? My error count is the blue one. So if I click on this, I could only see my error count. If I click back on the rolling average, I will go ahead and add these. But I could always click on my settings, right? Change series. Let's say I want to have my rolling average as line chart. And once I save it, I will get the same look that we had. So just to repeat, I know I went through it a little bit fast, so you could always click on settings, change series, and be able to choose what each, your error count or your rolling count, depending on how you want to view it. One of the other things that I like to show is, I know it might not make sense for this specific example, but I could use stacking, right? So let's say that I want to stack this two right here. I could go back into my properties, go into stacking. You could do normal or %, right? Once I save it, it will be the same minute of these two values will be within the same column, right? It will just go ahead and stack them together. So if you have multiple different, let's say 3, 4 different values that you're trying to graph, and you want to see the difference within that minutes, right? You could always stack them together. LogReduce. So let's go ahead and find a needle in the haystack, right? So what LogReduce will do, it would actually take all of the log messages and group them together by similarities. So it is basically looking for pattern recognition, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at our source category. Let's run our search. We have multiple ways to actually use LogReduce, right? Just like this example, we could just go ahead and write our operator, right? I could just go ahead and do this, or if I want to go ahead and just use clicks instead of typing, I could click on my LogReduce operator. This will open up a new tab, right? And it will go ahead and show me the logs that are coming in. What are the unique values? And most of the time, so these are the values that within my log that gets repeated, and anything that has star on it, it will go ahead and show me saying that, these are the things that are changing all the time, but the rest of the logs are the same. So at any time, if I'm doing any type of troubleshooting, or I want to see, my log count and, what are the logs that I'm ingesting the most of the time, I could go ahead and use LogReduce and see the count of them, right? Let's say these logs are coming in 3 times, so maybe this is the issue that I'm having. Or I want to go ahead and see, why is my ingest so heavy? I could come in here and take a look at that as well. Let me move this. Perfect. So if you want to compare activity from different period of time, right? So let's say I want to compare my logs last 24 hours, right? 15 minutes ago, and the current last 15 minutes, right? And see the difference between them. There are multiple different use cases for it. We could actually, let's say we just deployed new code and errors started to happen, and I want to go ahead and see what happened, what was going on before we deployed code, and what's going on now, right? Just like earlier, let me just go ahead and copy this so we can look at the same exact data. You know, LogCompare is basically doing LogReduce twice, right? It's to be able to compare your log messages from one point in time with another point in time and just go ahead and show you the differences. I could, just like LogReduce, I could just go ahead and use my UI. I could click on this arrow. I could take a look at last 24 hours or last 7 days, 15 minutes ago, or I could do a custom one. For this example, I will just go ahead and click on last 24 hours. So what my query is looking for, right? Yesterday, same time, last 15 minutes, and the current last 15 minutes, and give me the differences, right? So these type of logs are actually happening more. I mean, this is happening 69% more than yesterday. The minus means it stopped happening, right? And there is, here we go. So anytime we see new, these are the logs that, you know, it was not there yesterday, and today these are the new logs that are coming in. So maybe you might want to focus on those, and you will be able to see gone. So what this means is that yesterday these logs were actually within your ingest, but currently you're not ingesting these. So what's going on? Is this causing the issue? You know, just like this example right here, I could always use my isNew operator. So anytime I run a LogCompare or LogReduce, new fields being added to my results, right? As you can see, I want to focus on the new logs that are happening. So I could always do where parentheses isNew. So let's go ahead and run that. Yes, you can. You could actually create an alert on LogReduce, definitely. So with the LogCompare, we could do it with the LogCompare as well, right? Because we could say, you know, I want to see anytime we have new logs that are coming in, or new type of logs that are coming in, anytime we do a new deployment, and you could go ahead and receive those. So as you can see, I'm only seeing my new logs. So if something went wrong, I could come in here and see if any of these logs actually caused that issue. Alrighty, so the outlier operator, right? So outlier, it identifies values in a sequence that seems unexpected, right? So what I mean by that, let's say I want to create an alert, right, for my 404 status codes. Currently, if I create an alert without an outlier, I have to do a static number, right? So basically, I need to say, you know, if I have more than 500 static 404 status codes, go ahead and alert me. Well, it's not always, you know, we don't always get, we might actually have heavy traffic and be, you know, getting 1,000 404 error codes, but it's still okay because of the amount of traffic is actually increased. So that's the time that we could use outlier. So let me go ahead and copy this. So open up a new search. So what I'm doing in here, focusing on my 404 status codes, time slicing it per 1 minute. Let's go ahead and run this for 60 minutes. I'm counting my status codes and I'm doing an outlier on my error count. I will get into this and I will show you guys how to figure out, you know, what these values are, and show you guys examples, what they fix or change. So once I run this, right, it will go ahead and give me my error count. I will see my violations, but most of the useful, especially for visualization, I want to go into my line chart. So what I see in here is that top light blue part is my threshold, right? So basically I'm saying is that at 9:23 a.m., my threshold, my 404 error count should be between 3 to 26. And it is actually 14. So I'm not getting this pink triangle, right? If I put my mouse over that pink triangle, I could see that my error count is actually more than my threshold, right? It is 23, it should be 22. Right? That's the time that I will actually get alerted. I could make my threshold a little smaller, right? So let's say instead of 3, let's do 2, so we could see more pink triangles. In this case, not only anything that goes over my threshold, but I care about anything that goes lower than usual, right? So let's say if you're trying to figure out how many people are checking out from your site, you could create an outlier to be able to tell you when that number drops, right? What's going on? Is there any errors? Is everything all right? You could go ahead and double check those. You do have the option to take a look at only the plus, so anything that goes over, or you could actually do anything that oppositely, when we put a minus, I could only focus on these. So these windows, I could run my outlier operator without these. We do have default values for it. So basically the window default value is 10, right? And the window is the number of data points to calculate the mean and sigma, right? It's just basically doing a lot of math for us. The consecutive is, the number of, so how many times is my error count should be over my threshold for me to get alerted, right? Currently we are saying 1, but we could create this as 2, right? So I need to see that 2 times. Let's do both of these. And as you can see, these are, these are only happening once, so I'm not getting any errors, right? So you're basically telling the system, don't alert me if it only happens once. And threshold, as we talked about, these are the standard deviations to figure out my threshold throughout the time. Perfect. And one of our last labs for alerting is creating an alert using Outlier. So I will show you guys exactly how to create and put this outlier into an alert to be able to receive those email or webhook alerts. So to predict, so this is similar to Outlier, but it predicts data for us, right? So let's say I want to see, what's going to happen for my 404 status codes, right? Let's run this for the last 60 minutes. Create a new log search. Already. Could actually get this a little bigger so we could see the names of them. Forgot to show you guys. So at any time, you do have the option to get these bigger, smaller. It all depends how you want to see your results. So I'm counting my status codes, my 404 status codes, and trying to predict my error count to see what's going to happen, right? So at 908, my error count is 2, 909 is 11. I'm trying to see my predicts, right? So if I actually go into my last page, I want to, let's go one more down. So at any time that we're not having, 10:07, the time that I run this, we were looking at these, or 10:10, 10:12, this will predict what my error count will be, right? It will go ahead and try to be precise. And if we want to go ahead and put a line chart into this, what this will do, it will actually say that, hey, my error counts are actually going up. This, instead of going lower, it is going to increase, right? This will just give me a better idea of what's going on within my environment and trying to predict and take action. Transaction operator. So with transaction operator, we could use unique session IDs or unique identifiers to be able to figure out at what point in time that unique ID and what they did, right? So in this example, we're basically using an e-commerce site, right? We're looking at labs e-com-mark. We are trying to figure out how many of our customers actually put their, go into their cart, typed in their shipping info, billing info, receive the confirmation, and receive that order shipped email, right? And we want to be able to figure out if we lost any of our customers or what happened at one point, and try to figure out what could be the reason, right? Sumo Logic tells us what's going on, but of course, figuring out why most of our customers dropped from shipping info and came into confirmation, right? As you can see, there is a big difference. That's the time that Sumo Logic will not be able to say, why is that happening, right? So let's go ahead and run this. At least in this example, it will not be able to. So for my unique identifier, I'm using my IP addresses, right? I'm parsing out my IP using Regex, and I'm doing a transaction on IP with saying that, hey, this keyword, anything that has confirmation in it, right? I want to use it as, my confirmation state. Order shipped will be order shipped, cart is cart. And I want to go ahead and see at one point, and by the way, as always, anytime we run a search, an aggregate search, it takes us to our table, but we could always click on this button right here, flow diagram, and see our customers. So it looks like there was 1,136 total people who went into cart. Shipping info dropped a little bit, and of course, the confirmation dropped a lot, right? Is there an UI error? Is UI confusing? Is there any, errors that we are getting for our customers to be able to go into the confirmation page? These are the things that we could actually create and be able to see within our applications. Perfect. So I want to create alerts now, right? So as we mentioned before, I want to be able to create an outlier alert and see when that pink triangle happens and how to actually receive alerts with it. So let me copy my log search. All right, so in this case, I'm using two different fields, two different values for my status code, right? I'm using my best practices, right? I'm saying my status code's 200 in my scope. Or I want to see my 404s. So I do not want to see any of those 500s, 300s. I just want to focus on 200s and 404. This way, my search runs faster, and I'm not looking at any type of logs that I don't need to. I'm using my time slice to be able to time slice it into a minute. Let's run this for the last 60 minutes. Using my if statement, so I'm marking my 200s as successes, 404s as fails, and trying to sum my successes and fails to be able to find out my failure rate percentage. And right after that, I'm doing my outlier to be able to create a meaningful alert and to see when we get those pink triangles. So within my search, I could see there is within the last 60 minutes, there's 5 of those pink triangles, right? To be able to create a meaningful alert, I will need to take advantage of, I will need to take advantage of my violations, right? So as you can see, Outlier Operator creates multiple different type of new fields that we could take advantage of. And failure rate percentage violation is our pink triangles. So as you can see at 928, we have this one. So it will basically create that pink triangle. If I scroll down at 926, it has that one again. It's my pink triangle. So instead of typing, I could copy this, put it in my search. So I'm saying, anytime this percent violation is bigger than 0, go ahead and give me those values. Once I do that, I will see my 4, it was 5, but times change. So I will see this values, and I want to be alerted every time I get this pink triangle, right? Every time my percent violation is 1. So the way that I will create this alert, I will click on this 3 dots right on top, right next to our setting. Click on Save As. Once we do Save As, right, we could give it a name, right? Outlier Alert. We could write a description if you like, right? It's all totally up to you. Location to save it, but instead of saving it, we will click on Schedule this search. Once we click on it, we could choose a run frequency. So we could say, every 15 minutes, hourly, you could do a custom cron job. If you want like a weekly report, right? So let's say every Friday, you want to be able to receive a report, you could go ahead and click on that. For right now, I'm gonna run it for every 15 minutes. Choose the time zone that is that you're located. And we have two different types of notifications. We could send a alert to us every time the search is completed, right? That's more of reporting, right? So if I say, every Friday, even if I don't have any results, go ahead and send me an email, let me know what's going on. I will just go ahead and choose that. Or we could say, if the following condition is met, right? I want to be able to alert it. I want to receive an alert, even if I have one of that pink triangles, right? There is a reason why we created this outlier, and I want to be alerted right away. We could do email alerts, script action, webhook. So if you are using, any type of webhook connection, we could go ahead and send you alerts. For this example, let's keep it as email. In here, we will use recipients, right? So let's say ps@sumologic.com. This is my team's email, and this will just go ahead and send all of our alerts to that recipient. And of course, this part, you do not have to, the owner of this search, owner of this alert, you do not have to specify your email in under recipients. It will, as long as this is checked, you will receive an alert. Email subject, we could go ahead and do test. Email subject, we could go ahead and customize this, right? So if I want to say, take search alert, I just want to call it alert found, and just give it the search name and say test 101. Within the email, we could include our search query, right? So the query that we are running, you could include that within your alert. The result set, so basically there's 4 items right here, what we were seeing within our table. The histogram, so this histogram right here, you'll be able to see if you're creating an alert for, let's say, the amount of logs that you're ingesting, right? The histogram will be definitely useful. You'll be able to see where the spikes are happening. You could even include a CSV attachment. So let's say you want to receive this alert and you want to forward the results to another teammate, you could include that within your alert. And once I click save, this will be saved. It will be running every 15 minutes, looking at last 60 minutes worth of data, and will alert you if they see even one of those pink triangles. Perfect. Alrighty. So
quick question, if I could.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there a case where you would want to set that to real time rather than 15 minutes? Like if you had a really tight SLA for resolving large amounts of errors, or would we do that with a different tool?
So what we can do for that, we could, especially for real time, is depending on the use case, is to use monitors, right? Monitors are actually running all the time. So instead of, it's a scheduled search, it's not really scheduled, but looking at your data, I believe it is every minute, but I do have to double check that, right? It's running and looking for, let's say, your 404 status codes, and you want to be alerted on a static number, you could use that, which is under manage data and monitoring.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Great. Any other questions? Alrighty. So we just finished our labs, but there are a few other things that I want to go ahead and show within the UI. So, once you log in, you see this homepage. If you take a look at the Learn tab, right, these might be useful for our certification exam. So we have our quick start videos. There's not only 5 of them. Once you click one, you will see our YouTube page, and there's a bunch of different ones. These are quick micro lessons to, for specific topics, and it will go ahead and walk you through, let's say, how to create them, how to use them. If there are any limitations within some of the operators, let's say, you'll be able to, they will go ahead and specify that within the video as well. Some of the, this cheat sheet, I believe Lisa posted that onto the chat, but you could find this cheat sheet here. This is really useful, right? This will go ahead and show you our parsing, our aggregating, search operators. It will go ahead and give you a description on what it is. If there are any restrictions, it will go ahead and specify it, and we'll give you an example of the syntax, right? How to use it. If you want to go into it, so let's say I want to take a look at my cat operator and learn more about it, you could always click on this. This will go ahead and take you to our help doc. We'll give you a little bit more information on it. If there is more examples, you could go ahead and see that as well. At any point, if you want to print this out in a better looking version, you could click on the PDF version and you will have this, you'll be able to print these out. And this will go ahead and show you the syntax for our operators. The other thing that is going to help us throughout our everyday use case and also our certification exam is our docs, right? We could come in here. So let's say earlier we went through our field extraction rules. I could come in here, take a look at field extraction rules. So let's say I want to learn how to actually create it. Oh, okay, there you go. Still connected, I think. Yep, okay. This will go ahead and give us our limitations. What are the things that we need to watch out for when we are creating field extraction rules, and it will walk you through step by step on how to create it. And you could do that for you could use our help docs for anything. And this will definitely become useful, and you'll be able to do searches while you're taking your certification. So what's new, just to quickly going over it, is anything that we have new, any of the new features, it will be listed there. You could create a support ticket, get training. It's basically these certifications. You could definitely use that. And lastly, the community. These are the Slack channels that we have that has been created for not only for Sumo employees, but we have all the users within that Slack channel as well. So at any time, if you want to be part of it, you could go ahead and click on it and you will be added to our Slack channel. There are amazing discussions that goes on. If you have a quick question on a query, you could always ask that. And one of us or one of the Sumo Logic users will be able to answer you as well. Alrighty, so let me just go ahead and double check if there are any other questions. So Jared, correct. Let me see. Correct. You do have to enter a recipient, but you do not have to enter your own if you're sending it to someone else. Sorry, I should have made that clear.
What it says, because the toggle says on failure, so that would lead me to believe that only if your search fails.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to
Let me take a look at that. I could take a look at one of our. I just want to see one of these. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, so this is basically if the search just fails, it will go ahead and send that to you. So at any time, you do have to specify one recipient. And thank you so much for clarifying that, Jared. I appreciate it. Perfect. Let me go through, take a look before we move into our certification. So let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break before we start taking our certifications. So once we come back, I will go through all of these chat and make sure all of them are answered. And once we come back, we will go ahead and take our certification. So let's come back at 10:35, so in 10 minutes. Alrighty, so It is 10:35. We should all be back to take the certification test. So before, one of the most important things is that while you're getting certified, to be actually receive your certification, please sign out of the Sumo Logic training account, right? And please sign into your own personal or corporate Sumo Logic account, right? Once you sign in, you will need to go into your certification tab right next to Learn and click on Get Certified. Right, this will actually take you to the page. This will actually take you to the page to start taking the test. One of the things that that we have for our current certifications, we have some rewards, right? So for any of our certification classes, if you once you pass the test and if you email your certification and the one that you receive in your email to training@sumologic.com, you will receive a $15 Uber Eats voucher. So and also there are some other rewards as well. So you could get a backpack if you complete 6 certifications. It is similar. So once you're done with that, at the end of it, you will have to fill out a form and you will receive a backpack. Right, I believe we could put that form to, we could put this form to our chat. So once you finish 6 certifications, you could fill it out. But please don't forget, once you pass the exam, feel free to email your certifications to training@sumologic.com. Let me put that into our chat window so you guys can have it. And you will receive that $15 gift card for Uber Eats. And just as a reminder, please sign out of Sumo Logic training account. This is, once you take the exam, this will not be your certification. This will be, whoever logs in next. And most of the certifications are done actually in this training account. So if you just log into your Sumo Logic account and go into certification, click on Get Certified, you will be able to see the Search Mastery exam. It will be right here. And instead of the self-paced course, so most of our certifications do have the self-paced course. It is basically what we went over today, right? All of the labs. You will need to sign up for the Search Mastery exam. And we do have it in different languages as well if it's needed. So Lisa, Tram, and I will be online, right? We'll be here. If any questions come up, if you have any troubles while taking the exam, please let us know. We'll be happy to help you out.